Hi guys, I have got a fun little page in my traveler's notebook today. I thought it would be cute to do a day in the life of Lily. And I've got the Kellie Stamps Fun Times stamp set here to use as well. I printed out 5 little photos of Lily. Her day doesn't consist of much, so I didn't need to print out a million photos. There's just 5. Lily gets up, we drop Shane off at work, then she sits beside me while I work, has a bit of a nap, we go for a walk, she has a bit more of a nap, and that's about it. So these 5 little photos, I printed them out just sort of random sizes, which was a bad idea. I should have measured those out, because they actually, none of them really fit with the thin metal dies that I had. I wanted to do them in circles. There are all these circle elements on this Fun Time stamp set, so I wanted to use circles, but actually none of these photos fit the dies that I had, so I ended up having to trace around them with a pencil and then cut them out by hand, which is a little bit messier than I wanted. Now for my background, I'm going to use the digital version of this stamp set and going to use my new Foil Quill. So I'll show you how I do that in the Silhouette software. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is set up my page how I have the actual mat set up. And the first thing I need to do is just draw out a rough guideline for what the actual finished size is going to be, which is going to be 4 1/4 by 8 inches. So it's going to be slightly shorter. In fact, let me just do that as 4 inches. The pages that I have set up on my Silhouette mat are, did I get that right? No, not quite. 6 by 8. They're the 6 by 8 papers, so that's why they're slightly shorter here. And I have set them up so that they are right on the bottom of my mat. It doesn't really matter where you put them, that's just where I put it. And I want my the page that I cut out to be in the middle of that. So I'm gonna duplicate 2 of those, because that's how it looks on my mat. So that's how that goes, and now I can go ahead and do the actual tracing of the stamp. So I'm gonna bring in the XO PNG file and go to my trace tool, which is up here, select the trace area and just trace that sucker, and then I can delete the PNG file that's underneath, and that gives me my cut file, which I'm going to end up using as a sketch file instead. So what I want to do is resize this so I can get 3 across, and I'm just going to have to eyeball it at the moment, but I'm just going to duplicate 3 of those sort of roughly, and considering I eyeballed it, that wasn't it wasn't too bad of a guess, to be honest. So I'm going to align this with the left side of my fake Traveler's Notebook page. I'm going to align this one with the right side of it, and this one, oops, hit that once, in the middle, which gives me my alignment, and I bring those in a couple like so. And then I'm going to just select those 3, don't need all those outlines, and just group those together. I'm going to duplicate that once and use the little grabby tool to spin it upside down. Oops, and I've grabbed the wrong one. That's that one there. And that gives me my repeat pattern. So just to make sure that that's aligned there, I'll just align that to the left, and just for now I'm going to group that together too, and then zoom back out. Now I want to duplicate that again and again and again, and possibly I can get it again. just ungroup this one and just delete that bottom one. So I'm going to select that bottom group and align that to the bottom. I'm going to align this one to the top and then just bring that down and bring this one up, and then I can grab all of these here and ungroup them once. So now I've got my single lines. Grab that one there too, and then use the distribute tool there. So that gives me my full pattern for the page. So I'm going to select all of that, minus the outline here. In fact, I'm not going to use this fake Traveler's Notebook outline anymore, so I can just delete that. I want to duplicate this pattern again because I need it on both of my 6x8 pages, and I'm just going to make sure that's in the middle of my 6x8 pages. This one definitely should be. And so then you can literally go ahead and foil quill that. You could use that as a cut file. You definitely don't need all these double lines for a cut file. So if I zoom in here, if you wanted to cut this out of the background, you only need the outside of the X and the outside of the O, and then you could go ahead and do the exact same thing. So just when you trace it, ungroup all of that and just select the two you need, and then do all the duplicating to make your pattern. For the foil quill, this is gonna, so it's gonna like foil 2 lines from each letter. And you could totally just leave it like that too if you wanted to. Sorry about all the zooming in. What I want to do though is just show you how to get a solid fill with the foil quill, which is a tiny bit complicated, but I did manage to find a way to do it. So if I ungroup all of these, and I'm gonna ungroup this as well, I'm just gonna randomly do this in a couple of places. So I'm going to duplicate just one of these exos, the wrong one again, just so I can show you what to do. A little bit closer up so we can see. So it's the same thing. I want to release the compound paths. All I need is the outside files. So I'm going to delete all of these, which is, again, if you delete this one, that's what you would use as a cut file if you just wanted to make this pattern into a cut file. If you don't have a foil quill, this would still look really cute as a background. These two, I want to remake a compound path. I'm just going to group that again, and then go to the line effects, and I want to choose concentric circles, which you can see when I choose that, it doesn't do very much at all. It puts this in here, but the smaller you make the spacing, the more circles you'll see appear on here. So every one of those lines is a foil quill line. So by the time you get to 0.005, that's a lot of lines. It does take a lot of time, and I think this effect is better on smaller shapes rather than anything larger. You definitely don't get a solid foil effect like you would with, say, a mink, but it does fill in the shape that you've got. This is as close as it gets with the foil quill that I've found so far anyway. I just want to release that effect so that I've got this all set here, and then I'm going to go back so you can see what I'm going to do. I want to place 3 of these throughout the page, so I'm going to duplicate this one, and let's say I'm going to put it here. So I want to put it, align it to the shape that's already on the page. Just select the first one, which will be your filled in shape, and place it in the back, which is this one here, center back. And then click it again, and that should be, never get it right. There's 2 shapes under here, and you want to delete the one that's the outline, is effectively what I'm saying. And I'm just going to repeat that process a couple of times because I want 3 sort of spread out on my page. You do need to make sure that when you're aligning these, you ungroup the line of shapes. And then it's just a matter of playing around with it until you can delete the right piece. And let's stick one up here. And the only other thing I need to do before I send that is delete these outlines for my paper. So everything is set to go. I just need to lay out my paper onto my mat in the same way. And make sure my foil quill is all heated up and then send that. So to send it, whichever tool holder that you're putting it into, and I've just been doing it on a pattern paper setting with a pen holder because that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like a pen, it's not a silhouette pen, and I have just been using the sort of speed and force. It says 10 and 18. I just slowed it down a little bit to say 8. As far as I can see, the speed doesn't really affect anything. The force is probably the more important one. And again, I think just play with it. It depends on the foil that you're using. I've used a couple of different brands of foil and have had varying results. So there has been a lot of experimentation and I suggest you do the same. So I will go ahead and send that to my silhouette now. So I've just done my background for this page, and I kind of want to interject the video here just to say that everyone who always comments on my silhouette videos about what a wizard I am, let me show you how much of a wizard I am. This is the first stuff up on this background, and this is the second one, so that's right, it took me 3 attempts to get this. I have to use this because these were the only 2 pieces of this paper in the pad, so now I have to work out a way to cover these up. So just to say, I'm not any sort of genius or silhouette wizard. I just have to try things again and again and again until they actually work, and try to remember which tool I'm using when I want to use a foil quill. Don't have it set on the automatic blade. So like I say, because I stuffed that up twice, unbelievable really, I did have to redo my file just a little bit. So because both of the errors were on these X's, every time I made that error and stopped it and forced it to stop, spit it out, this X was cut out, so I couldn't have my solid ones down here. I had to shift it up one, and then I did the same thing again down here. So yeah, the file ends up looking a little bit different. I can still use the exact same file on those same bits of paper by just removing the area of the file where the error on the paper is. So I did still manage to use those 2 bits of paper with the same file that I had used with a little bit of alteration. So in the end, I didn't use that background. I will use those for something else, but I couldn't work out how I was going to be able to cover up a hole at the bottom of the page. So instead, I used that same file I created and used my foil quill again, this time just on a solid, just a solid color background. I don't know what kind of color you call this. Greyish, I guess. It's sort of a really warm grey. In real life it looks a bit more yellow in this video. I tried to find a colour of cardstock that was going to go with that all heart collection. The backgrounds in that collection aren't actually white, so I couldn't use white cardstock, and this was kind of the closest that I had. So I've glued that on. You can see the foiling there. It looks really pretty. I actually think the foiling looks more impressive on the solid background than it did on that pattern paper. But then my black and white night photos looked a little bit funny on that greyish sort of colour. So I did go and use those same metal dies and just trimmed out just some white paper. It's not even cardstock, it's just a little bit of scrap paper, just to mount those photos on and give them a little bit of a border between the photo and the grey background. So it just helps those photos stand out a little bit. Now I'm finally getting to use the actual stamp set, and I'm gonna grab a few of these little sentiments and just bend them around the photos. Now some of these are tight because this little photo, it's like less than an inch I think, so it did need a little bit of manipulation on the block for these stamps to bend around the outside, but you can see it's totally doable. For longer sentiments like this, it's a really fun way to get a little bit more versatility out of them. So you can do it one or two ways. You can put the stamp onto your block and bend it round and just keep checking whether it fits, or you can actually bend it onto your photo and then stick the block down on top to pick up the stamp in the right shape. I also used the mini Oak Street Alpha to stamp a day in the life on the larger photo of Lil. I wasn't super happy with it though, it doesn't stand out very well, but I decided just to leave it for now, and I'm going to carry on with the rest of my page, which involves more circles. I've been loving circles lately. I've been super inspired by heaps of posts actually that I've seen on Instagram, people making layouts with circles. So that's where my circle theme came from. Also sort of helped along by the O and the XO background too. So I grabbed a few of my scrap pieces from the All Heart collection. I love this so much that I'm like being really stingy with it, so I'm not cutting into any new sheets unless I really have to. I'm using all these little scrappy bits, and I use those same metal dies just to cut out a few circles, and you can see me playing around with them. I'm going to keep everything towards the bottom, sort of the bottom of this page, and just trying to distribute some of the patterns and the colors to create a sort of balance to the layout. I could faff about with this for a really long time, so in the end I just am gonna go ahead and start sticking things down. Certainly the background papers anyway. The actual photos I'm gonna leave just a little bit longer because I do want to use that circular phrase stamp that's from the stamp set as well. It just repeats the phrase "my happy place," which just about all of these photos are for Lil, so I'm gonna use that as a sort of third circular element on the page, and I really love how that looks. So you end up with the photos and then these solid colors, and then these little black sentiment lines, sort of a line of a circle, and I really enjoy how that turned out. So I'm just sort of placing my photos where I think they're gonna go, and then inking my stamp, then quickly lifting the photo off and stamping it down, and that's how I get it roughly where I want it to go. The right hand side is pretty much done, so I can stick those photos down. I do just add one more down the bottom there. The one on the left, I did sort of mess up the inking of the stamp, and there's a big blob in the middle, which I wasn't super happy with, and I do attempt to cover it up a couple of times. And actually, in the end, you'll see I'm really happy with the way that worked out, and I probably never will have done it if I didn't make that stamping mistake in the first place, so it all works out nicely. I'm going to add a few more of the just the solid phrases there, but I decided instead of adding more black, I wanted to bring in a little bit more pink to the page, pink and teal. Shocking color scheme I've got here, isn't it? So different for me. So I'm using some pink ink to stamp those sentiments, and I'm going to end up stamping 3. I hadn't really planned on having like my usual visual triangle, but I do actually end up creating one anyway. It's less of a triangle, but I do end up with my three little I guess points of interest. Now again, I still wasn't super happy with the way that day in the life using that mini Oak Street Alpha stamped onto the photo, so I went over top of it in the pink ink, and although I didn't get the placement perfect, it is much better. You can actually see it now, for instance, so that's always a plus. And it wouldn't have worked. I couldn't have stamped the pink on first anyway. It would have it would have just disappeared onto the photo as well. So I think this is it's a good compromise. I'm just punched out a couple more tiny little circles in those same pattern papers, again just to add a little bit of balance. So I've got those 3 circles of the darker green just to fill in a few little gaps. And now I'm going to go sticker crazy because I love these all heart stickers and they're so easy to layer with. So I'm adding again these sort of sentiment stamps. They are transparent, but it actually looks quite cool. I think it's a really different type of sticker for me. Plus these holographic stickers, and the foil that I had used for the background, I had chosen sort of holographic silver one as well, only because I knew that there was the holographic silver in these stickers rather than gold or something like that. So that's just bringing out a little bit more sparkle, and then adding in just a few little butterflies and flowers for no other reason than to add a little bit more pink and whimsy to the page. So here's where I fix this circle. I just add one of these pink flowers to it. It gives me 3 pink flowers and it just worked out so perfectly. I couldn't believe it. I did add one tiny butterfly cluster sort of thing to the top there. I wondered about adding puffy stickers, but actually the layout's done. Considering there were so many mistakes with this page, it actually really turned out beautifully. I'm so happy with it. It's so perfect for Lil. All of these stamps are still available in the Kellie Stamp store, including the digital set, so I will leave the link for you down below. Don't forget to go and grab one for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to see more, why not consider checking out my Patreon page? There are even more videos over there. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!